Welcome to the program Inside Council Chambers. My name is Ishmael Mkandla. Today my guest is the Deputy Mayor of Bulawayo, Councillor Tinashe Kambarana. Welcome to the program, Councillor.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. First, I would like to find out from you, what are the roles of a Deputy Mayor? Of course, we understand a bit about being a councillor, but when it comes to a Deputy Mayor, some people will not understand it. What does the Deputy Mayor do?
Okay, well, my office basically is that of a mayor. All the roles that a mayor would do is my part. Actually, I chair council meetings.
Okay.
Also, in the event that the mayor is incapacitated or is absent, I do all the roles that the mayor would do. I chair council meetings, committee meetings, and the programs that we have. Is basically you are as a mayor, you are like a supervisor.
Yeah.
To see if all the things that are supposed to be done by the directors, the staff, things are done the right way, and also being the gap also of council and residents, and also the bridge, if I can put it that way, between government and the people.
Yeah. And the big question today is, people have been asking, we have a new council, a team of councillors in office, and it's almost a year now these guys have been elected. What is it that they've done for the people of Bulawayo?
Well, we have quite a number of projects that we've been working on. I think maybe let me take it from, we basically took over from the previous council. There were projects that they had actually left. I'll give you an example of maybe Ekodini project being one of the projects that we took over from the previous council.
Yes.
There were challenges here and there. The contractor had challenges. Actually, maybe I think the challenges also he got affected by the economic situation, the issues of the currency we're using in our country and all that. But
yes,
when we came in, we tried to understand the situation and also taking over from there, trying to push to make sure that there is progress. Right now, I think if you visit Ekodini, you would find that there's serious progress that they've done. I mean, they've completed actually the preliminaries of surface preparations, digging and removing everything. So now they're at a stage where they are ready to start constructing, and they promised that by December this year,
yes,
December, they should have completed phase 1. So I think first that being one of the biggest projects that we took over from the previous council.
yes,
We've seen serious progress, because we were getting a lot of questions from residents and everyone. It's just something that everyone is interested in, to know what is happening at Ekodini, looking at the situation that we see in town. There's congestion. So what I can say is that we have made progress. Then maybe I'll tell you also from councillors, starting from, let me start with my ward.
yes.
In Ward 3, if you visit Woodville, you would find that we installed street lights, solar street lights, modern solar street lights. That this comes also at a time when we have serious economic challenges, the issues of our currency that we're using, the money that has lost value, inflation and so forth. But now, in the midst of those challenges, we are trying our best to try and make sure that there is progress. Yes, we may cry like other people would do, but still, we are trying our best in the midst of challenges to make sure we have progress.
I remember the last time we had an interview, you spoke about the Zinara issue, particularly how they allocate funds to local authorities for road construction. Has the issue been sorted?
No, we have serious challenges there, because you see, it's very sad that Zinara, when it comes to collection, they are very strict. You would find that the moment licenses expire, they mount roadblocks to make sure that they collect their money. But they don't do the same, because at the end of the day, that money is supposed to then be used to fix our roads. They collect money from motorists around Bulawayo. I told you the last time that they had collected millions of over 20 million.
Yes.
And we just got peanuts. And the money, those peanuts, they come after a serious struggle. Right now, as we speak, we haven't received anything from Zinara, and it's not easy then to fix our roads because our people are overtaxed. We can't introduce new taxes to say we want to fix our roads. When Zinara is collecting that money, we are supposed to be using that money. The same issue, it also goes to our toll gates. They collect money they collect a lot of money on our toll gates, but look at our highway roads. And there are potholes everywhere. You drive from New York to potholes, narrow, they are actually narrow. So that is still a challenge. We are supposed to solve it. Why are we collecting that money? If we cannot service the roads, if we cannot fix the roads, why are we collecting money? So it's a serious issue that we have also addressed through the minister. We've communicated with the minister to say, why are we having this situation? We should be getting that money from Zinara to fix our roads.
Yeah, true. And still on the issue of the roads, we've seen quite a lot of activity happening, particularly during the ZITF, Zimbabwe International Trade Fair. We've seen the resurfacing of some of the city centers roads, and we wondered, why is this happening during this period? Is it because we've got high-profile guests coming to the city, or it's something that is planned by the city?
Well, you see, when the money is availed at such a time where the senior government officials are coming, I think we have seen over the years, it's like a tradition. Every time when we say that it's a president or senior government officials coming for trade fair,
yes,
you would find, I think if you have seen, I'll give you an example of Robert Mugabe.
Yes.
It has been resurfaced, I don't know how many times. Right now, if we are to dig that road, we would find maybe more than 10 layers. If there are 10 years, they've been resurfacing every year. So it's a challenge that some of those funds are actually allocated to us during that period. As a city, we're very organized. If we were to prepare for any program, besides trying to make sure that on the tourism side we have a clean and smart city, we also want to make sure that our city is clean for Bulawayo residents at any given time. If you come, whether it's during or off season, you will find it that way. We don't like situations where we look like we are doing things for eye service.
Yes.
So that just because you have the visitors coming to your house, then you start cleaning the house and you do thorough cleaning. Your house should be clean at any given time, such that if anyone just visits you without notice, they will still find it that way. Yes. So we try by all means, but you see, some of these you get to be allocated funds to prepare for trade fair. Then you start seeing activity when visitors are already here, where we are now busy trying to resurface roads when there is the town is congested, traffic is not manageable. Then we're now trying to fix the roads. It then looks like we are not organized on our part. But we're always ready for our programs. Everything that we do, we try and do it timelessly, so that whenever we have programs or anything that is coming, it will come and find us ready. We don't look like we're now trying to run around to fix things when it's late.
You keep mentioning the issue of transport congestion in the city, and I would like to find out from the Deputy Mayor, what are you doing as the city to make sure that you ease the traffic congestion that is taking place in the city because of the introduction of buses, or maybe we now have more cars in the city?
Well, yes, we have more cars. I think if you look 10 years ago, we can say in 2009, we didn't have much. The number of vehicles that are in town now, we have quite a number of cars. Our traffic is a bit congested, but what then makes the situation worse is the issue of public transport. These buses that we're talking about, we have combis that are loading in town, in pavements, everywhere, you understand. First, as council, we organized 6th Avenue for combis that used to rank Ekodini, just as a temporary measure to make sure that as soon as that project is completed, they can then move back to Ekodini. And also, we wanted a situation where we have combis, they don't rank in one place because we don't have enough space. If you see, like in South Africa, I'll give you an example, the MTN rank, the combis that rank at MTN, they're not all the combis. You see that they have areas that they have allocated, the areas that have been allocated by their local authorities. For example, we can say in Vermont, if we see a space where we can say combis going to the western areas, they can all rank here. They park there, they can spend their day. But now they work with their rank marshals where if there is a queue, maybe say there are 5 combis at a time going to Makwekwe. So if those 5 combis load and they're about to finish, they will be communicating, send 5 more combis like that, so that we manage our traffic. Because even Egotini, like as we speak right now, it will be very small for that to accommodate all the combis that we have, because we are now going to be having a mall there, so we are going to have cars, people coming to shop there. So we don't have enough space in the city. So then you make use of areas like North End, where they do Luna Park. That we will take advantage of those areas. They're a bit out of town, but they're in town. But it's all trying to manage our traffic. So for now, the situation is a bit tricky in such a way that we now have these buses that the central government should have also communicated with us as a local authority to say, we want to mitigate the situation that we have. People are saying they cannot afford these combis, they're a bit expensive. Fine, we are sending buses. But now, the central government, the local authority, they should work together. They should not, we should not find ourselves in a situation where the central government sends buses to a city and they don't communicate with the local authority to say, where can we rank, where can we get loading bays. We can't have a city where a bus is loading passengers in front of a bank in the CBD. It's very clumsy. We saw that situation, and we've been trying to find ways of correcting that. But at the same time, we don't want to look like we're fighting
the national government.
Yes, not only that, because at the end of the day, the residents are also interested. They are actually getting assistance. They go home, they pay 50 cents to go home and come back to town. But now, we as a local authority, we should not also look like we are trying to fight what has been put in place to try and mitigate the situation, because fuel has been going up, and now the government just said, okay, fine, let's get these buses to transport people to and from home and cheaper. But now, as a local authority, if we are to go, you can imagine if we are to go and claim those buses, because they are loading from areas that are undesignated for. They are not loading and offloading areas. If we are to use our bylaws to make sure that we have sanity in the city, we are now fighting with the central government. We are also fighting with residents. It will look like we are actually against that. Yet we actually want also our people to be assisted, but it should be done in a right way. So the blame also goes to the central government, that there should be communication to say, this is what we have planned to mitigate the situation, but let's work together. What can we do? Where can we get places where we can get these people to load their buses? Not for buses to park in front of pavements and the robots. They load everywhere. It's not. We cannot have a city like that.
You mentioned the issue of bylaws, and there's been a call for the revisiting of the bylaws, particularly those that affected the vendors. Any plans to revisit the bylaws anytime soon?
Yes. Well, what we had. I think maybe let us look at where this thing starts from. It all goes back to unemployment. You'd find that most of these people that you see selling in the street, they are not there by choice.
True.
They've been forced by situations where, at the end of the day, they should provide for their families. So they are in the street trying to sell so that they can survive. But now, also as a local authority, like I said, we also try by all means to make sure that there is sanity in the city. We are not against vendors. We want them to sell their products. That is why we also have opened a tower block. They sell their clothes. Yes, at Kotama they sell their clothes during weekend. I mean, but it's in town. It's in front of city council premises, and we have actually, because we are trying to make sure that there is order. You can imagine if we had even just allowed them to be selling their clothes everywhere, in the city. Blawa Center, someone can just put their clothes there, I don't lie, But we try by all means to create an environment that we need some kind of order in the city. So for vendors, you find these ones selling fruits. They sell fruits everywhere. We try and make sure that we get them to understand. There are areas that are actually meant for vendors. There are also areas where maybe there are ranks, you see, like TM Hyper, the Egodini, you understand?
Yeah.
Even the plan for Egodini, it actually has a structure where there are actually places that are built for vendors. Because they should sell their fruits also, their proper shades and everything. You have seen it even in the other rank along 3rd Avenue in Lopengula Street.
Yes.
That's that kind of setup. That is the standard that we have the same plan for our market. The whole street is 5th Avenue, right?
Yes, yes.
The whole street 5th Avenue. We just need to put those shades and everything so that they can look their after selling and all that.
Yeah.
That is the plan that we have. But also that also requires, because for those who are actually being governed, they should make things easy for those who are governing them. Because if you resist and you start fighting each other, it's not good. We can't have a situation where we're always chasing each other. This one runs carrying their fruits, they stand there, they go back again. Once they see you, they come back, that kind of thing.
And it's funny though, because it's something that most people talk about. We always see the police, municipal police, chasing after the vendors, and people will be asking, do the councillors really know that there's something like this happening, and what is it that they are doing to make sure that probably they bend the bylaws to accommodate the situation? Because like you said earlier on, most people are not in the streets selling because it's by choice, but it's because of the situation prevailing.
Yes. So what happens is, we know the situation that is out there, but at the same time, even if you try and say, okay, let us have this kind of setup where vendors are going to be selling from here from such a time to such a time, you will still find them trying to move from where they are and sell their products even in front of a bank. Or you understand?
Yeah.
You're just creating unnecessary problems, because at the end of the day, some of them, you see, also we have people paying for their shop licenses.
Yes.
You understand? They are paying to city council. Some of these vendors, actually most of them, they don't pay tax. Now, these vendors, they go and they order things from whether Chinese shops or anywhere. They go and mount their shops in front of other people's shops who are paying tax. You understand?
Yes.
They are not paying tax. This person is selling their product for $5 because they are also considering that they have salaries, they have rent house. And this vendor who just walks to a shop and buys, no rent whatsoever. They go and mount their shop in front of that shop. They start selling the same product for $3.50. They can even negotiate to $3. The same product that is being sold inside for $5.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the issue of tax for our to protect also those ones who are running businesses, because they will still come with the same complaints. You as a local authority, we are paying our taxes, we are paying this and all that, but you have these vendors coming in front of our shops. And they put in front of the stationery, they put in front of the and you sell them in front of pens and you get everything. Stationery is outside. But at the same time, you walk into the shop place. So it's not only about, we cannot have vendors everywhere.
Yeah.
We want also to maintain and make sure that there is order in the city. The areas that are designated for vendors, they sell from there. So that it's also nice, because at the end of the day, anyone who wants to buy, they know that if you walk to such a place, you will find vendors there, you choose whatever you want to buy. But you cannot mount those everywhere in the city.
Yeah.
You can imagine actually at that rate, if we have actually other people who are actually aspiring to be business people, that type of business, getting into vending, there will be vendors everywhere.
But early this year, if I'm not sure, it's around March when the local authority embarked on a supplementary budget consultation. We have seen prices going up, things going up, and I'm sure as a local authority you're also faced by the same challenge, particularly from your suppliers. Are we going to see another supplementary budget consultation again to increase the budget for the city?
You see what you have touched, it's a very important subject. You know, our problems are emanating from the top. I told you about the central government and not actually in particular the Minister of Finance.
Yeah.
That is where our problems are coming from. We are not, some of us, we are not economists, but I don't think these people have an idea of the structure and the fundamentals of business. You see, when you talk about this, the only option that is left for these guys is to re-dollarize. Because as long as we're using this bond note, we are not going anywhere. That is, it ends there, full stop. These situations that we're talking about, where as a local authority, we had a supplementary budget. Currently, we had actually one, the last time I checked, we had one objection. But now, look, the problem is not only saying maybe we have to go and consult. It's about where we are going. Right now, as we speak, the budget has not yet been approved, but it has been eroded by inflation. The same one we're trying to get approved, it has already been eroded. At the time, I will tell you, $1 out there is it was at the time it was 1:5, like 100 US, you would get 500 bonds. Yeah. At the time. Right now, as we speak, 100 US, I think it's over 800 or 900. That is where we are. But we were trying to. This is over 800% inflation. But we were trying to get our budget approved to increase with 52%, and that was actually reduced to, I think, 40%. So increasing our rates with 40% when inflation is on 800% as we speak right now. Even at the time when we wanted to increase by 52%, inflation was way far from that. But we're a local authority, we also understand there is no way we're going to increase our rates and tell people to pay or to be chasing rates when they are still getting paid the same amount of money. So like I said, I think the only solution is to re-dollarize. The problem is that these people that are actually supposed to be managing that, the so-called finance minister and his team, I don't think they have an idea on what they are doing, because if they understood what is happening, if they understand what is happening, there is no way they will actually, right now as we speak, they are actually trying to remove the US dollar completely and introduce another currency. Honestly, if you were sure with what you were doing less than 10 months ago, you introduced bond notes, and now we are introducing another currency. But you had been warned before that this money will not work. They turned a blind eye on this. They were told several times that this thing will not work, but they were hard-headed. They said it's going to work. 10 months later, they now want to introduce another currency. Surely, if you're actually confident, if you're a finance minister, if you were confident of what you were doing at the time, why would you, within a short space of 10 months, you then decide to say, I want to introduce another currency? Yet you were told that this thing is not going to work. Right now, they know very well that the only solution is to re-dollarize, but they turn a blind eye on that. But I know these people, it's not like they don't know what they are doing. They know very well what they are doing. They know what they did. They had people's monies in their accounts. Someone had $4 million US in their account 3 years ago. Now it's 4 million bond. They know very well the moment they say re-dollarize, people are going to be claiming also their money. They lost their money in US dollars. So these people know very well what they are doing. They had people's monies. They are running away from this issue of re-dollarizing because they know it's a problem. Because you remember when they advertised bond notes, they said you don't have to open a separate account. You've seen billboards when they're saying it's 1:1. Same, this money is the same value. That is what they said.
But we have seen the
But later,
separation now
later they then said, you now have to open a new account,
in FCA account.
FC account. But this one that was there before, which one? It was US dollar and they changed it to bond. After changing it to bond, a few months later, they then tell us to open FCA accounts. You see, I'm trying to tell you that there is no consistency. These people, they know they are playing games. So that is where our problems are as a country. If we had continued using US dollars, no matter the difficulties we're going to be facing, but at least you could project 5-year projections, you could plan. Right now, what can you plan with these bond notes?
Yeah.
The same problem that you're talking about, us as a local authority, we have investors waiting out there to come and invest. We have big, massive projects that we could have actually, right now we have gone like it's almost a year since our elections. But
Yes.
by now we should actually have achieved a lot. But we can't because the investor is going to ask you a few questions. One of the questions being, how are we going to get our money back? We invest US dollars.
Yeah.
How are you going to get the US dollars back? That is the problem. So our problems actually are there. That is where the base
From
is.
the top.
The issue is about currency.
Yeah.
And
So
production can then continue, the industry can function. Because as long as we are importing, we are not going anywhere.
So what does the current situation then mean to the residents of Bulawayo, particularly looking at the service delivery? Are we still going to continue enjoying the same services that we're enjoying at the moment, or we're going to see a decline in terms of service provision by the local authority?
What I can tell you right now is the economic situation right now.
Yeah.
It has not spared everyone. Those also who are busy supporting some of these bond notes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about comrades in ZANU-PF. They are also suffering. For the first time, I heard a ZANU-PF member saying, no, these people are not good. You understand? But they fail to just face them and say, you guys are messing up. These people are actually struggling also. I'm telling you that you will see most of the ministries. Recently we saw, it was which ministers that sent a memo to say payment is going to be in US dollars.
To the workers.
Yes, they were talking about US dollars.
Mm.
Right now, ZESA is struggling right now as we speak.
Mhm.
Why? Because of foreign currency. They also have to do some payments in foreign currency.
Yes.
But they are collecting rates in bond notes. And they can't collect US dollars as long as people are getting paid in bond notes. So where are they going to get the US dollars? So that is what I said, why I said our they start from the top.
Yeah.
The moment the issue of currency is solved, our monetary policy is the biggest problem that we have. The moment that is solved, then we can start talking about other issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go to your ward now, looking at the ward that you represent. I'm sure you have also received the 3% retention, probably monthly. I'm not sure how often it comes. I would like to find out, how have you been using the money? What are some of the projects that you have done for the ward using the 3% retention?
Well, the ward retention fund, we receive it yearly.
Okay.
Currently, I'm still on the 2017 water retention because after I'm yet to receive the 2018 water retention fund. So what happens with that is we sit together with the resident chairs, then we agree. These resident chairs, they represent their suburbs, Mahachula, Woodville, Parklands, Kumalo, suburbs, and so forth.
Yeah.
So what then we do is that we sit together and say, this is how much we have, what can we do?
Yeah.
What are the challenges that we're facing? What are the priorities what is it that we need to consider first in our ward?
Yeah.
Then we come up with a plan. So first, on 2017 water retention fund,
Yes.
I think if you've seen in Woodville, the one I
You
mentioned
spoke about,
earlier,
yes.
we did solar lights for Woodville. If you drive to Woodville, you will see along Drayton Road going inside. We installed solar street lights.
Yeah.
Then the next year we had to, you see, our suburb, maybe let me put it this way, our suburbs are quite big.
Yes.
If you look at the geographical area,
Yeah.
Makokova is a ward,
Yes.
but my ward is maybe 15 times the size of
Yeah,
Makoko.
Makoko, yes.
Mahachula on its own is bigger than Makoko. It's a suburb in my ward.
Yeah.
So I have suburbs like Mahachula, maybe 15 of them. So what we then did is that we have different problems. The problems that they have in Makoko are different from the problems that we have in our ward. So we wanted to cut our grass and fix our roads, just maintenance, pothole patching and all that. That was then the first thing that we then said, these are the things that we need to attend to, because there are issues to do with security and safety.
Yeah.
So we had to buy grass cutters. I think you know those grass cutters that they use, machine grass cutters.
Yes, yes.
They use for, we bought those grass cutters.
How many?
We ordered 22. I think half of them have been delivered.
Oh,
there were also challenges with issues of inflation,
Payment,
because
yeah.
when the moment you order, the next time when you're going to pay, they tell you the price has changed.
Yeah.
They change prices every day because of the issues.
Yeah.
They also order those things outside the country. So we bought those grass cutters so that we cut our grass. Those grass cutters were basically going to be allocated per suburb,
Okay.
so that we then employ people within those suburbs to cut the grass.
Yes.
You know, my ward is more of medium to low density suburbs. Like I said, the issues that they want attended to in my ward is different from Makoko. Makoko being a high density suburb, they wouldn't be concerned much about cutting grass, you understand? But they, it's more like your something.
Yes.
You understand? They need that kind of. So we bought those grass cutters.
Yes.
You'll see them in our ward when we start using them.
Yeah.
Then we bought rammers. I think if you have seen where they do pothole filling,
Yeah.
there are those rammers.
Yes.
They use fuel that you use, so that at least even if we still have challenges, the best, of course, we know we have to resurface our roads. But in the meantime, whilst we do pothole filling, we need to make sure that we have a perfect job done. It's done perfectly done. So we had to buy those compactors so that they do fill the potholes. They use compactors and then they put tar. At least it's smooth. Avoiding a situation where you fill potholes, someone drives first, second time, and it comes out. We keep on doing the same thing. We know it's not the best to fill potholes. The best is to resurface the roads. The roads are old.
Yeah.
But for now, whilst we manage and we wait for resurfacing roads, we just need to maintain our roads in a perfect way. So that is what we've done so far with our water retention. So I think the next water retention, we have other projects also. We need to construct bridges that connect Mahachula to Woodville, Woodville to Kingsdale, and quite a number of projects like solar streetlights. They're a bit capital intensive, but those are the projects that are actually in line.
Yeah.
So we had these as priorities. So we've completed so far those that I mentioned.
Yeah. I remember having a discussion with some of the residents association leaders in the city, and they mentioned the fact that the outgoing councillors, they did not actually, they were not so happy about the issue of corruption that came out as one of the negatives from the previous council meetings. And they proposed that to the new team that is coming into play, they would require probably the declaration of assets. Are you willing to do so yourself?
Yes, perfectly. Actually, as leaders, I think if you have been following what has been happening,
Yeah.
we had challenges where one gets into public office and is accused for doing this, is accused for doing that, getting this, looting that, and in all that.
Yeah.
Yes, what I would tell you is that as a councillor, they have personal interest, but it's actually wrong at times to then do things that to dent your name, where they then feel like you did not go there to serve the people. You went there for your personal gains.
Yeah.
Like I said, even a councillor, he still has what? Personal interest.
Yes.
Yes. But at the same time, your personal interest should not, or maybe let me put it this way, you would find that other people, their personal interest, they to overtake service delivery. That becomes a problem where service delivery, personal interest,
So
they've overtaken service delivery. So, and also making sure that you do things for the people. Yes, you have personal interest. As an individual, you should be successful as an
Yeah.
individual.
True.
But you should not then abuse your office and look like you only got there to collect, to loot, and to acquire wealth. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that we might have challenges. We have challenges. It's important that actually you spoke about declaring assets.
Yes.
So it's important that as a public office bearer, you declare your assets. It's very good because it will save you also being accountable. As you make progress, one is expected anyway to make progress, because you wouldn't say that because you're using a Nokia 3310, why did you buy now an iPhone today? You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm working. I still get a salary. I still have other businesses that I do. I'll be seen making progress. Of course, it becomes suspicious where you saw me driving a Honda Fit. Now I'm driving a Lamborghini. You understand?
But do you have a Lamborghini going Blair?
No, we have seen it on the internet recently. Some of our public officers, you understand,
Yeah.
office bearers, where you all of a sudden are importing a Lamborghini when people are in deep poverty. They stink poverty. There is no food. There are no chemicals in hospitals. But you can actually, we are actually saying that we don't have foreign currency in this country, but someone can afford to buy a car that is
$20,000 car.
no $4 million car. You understand?
Yeah.
When things are like this, you know, $4 million right now in Hawaii. If you bring $4 million, you would have saved a lot. I mean, you can create employment. Businesses, I will tell you that most of the businesses that you see in town here,
Yeah.
they are only looking for a loan. Some of them $5,000 loan, $10,000 loan.
Yeah.
So, with all the small businesses that you see, entrepreneurs, if we are to give them $5,000 each, there will be activity in the city. They will also create employment. You understand? So in this time, and when the economy is like this, the bottom has come off, but someone can afford to buy a $4 million car. Those are the challenges that we have. So it's very important to declare your assets actually as a public office bearer, because then we then start questioning that. But you know, you're driving a Honda Fit. You know, Honda Fit is only $3,000. But now this one for $4 million. Where did you get it from? You understand? But if you had come maybe first with your Lamborghini before you got into office, we understand. You know, there are people like Strive Masiwa. They are business people. I mean, we know that even if you see him driving a Honda Fit, is by choice. He can afford any car.
Yeah.
He can afford to buy a private jet for himself. So what I'm saying is that it's different. So it's important to declare your assets so that you are accountable also as a public office bearer.
I have noted also that during the course of your term, the past 10 months, we have seen also even the president declaring that every first Friday of the month is a cleanup day. We have seen quite a number of cleanups taking place in the city. And I wonder, are you, as the leaders or the people running the city, are you noticing any impact from those Fridays, the first Fridays cleanups?
Well, we have seen that some of these cleanup campaigns that you see, we should not only talk of cleanup campaigns just for cleanup campaigns so that I'm seen behind the camera.
Yeah.
We should do the actual cleaning. That is the most important thing. I'm happy you have seen there is a guy by the name Tonderai.
Yes.
He's doing very well, and that is practical. Those are things that are tangible. He has done very well, and we clap hands for him. He has helped the city. They do the actual cleaning. They don't only do that to be seen on newspaper or on media.
But have you participated in any
Yes,
of
we
these?
have. Many a times, you know, he invites us, different councillors, they participate in those cleanup campaigns.
Sure.
But also this cleanup campaign, there is also need for cleaning up Parliament also. There is need for serious cleaning up Parliament because there is no sanity there. That is where the problem is. We should be having a lot of cars, people working overnight, cleaning up our city. Our employees who are short-staffed right now because we cannot afford to pay them. But if there is sanity in our Parliament, like I say, where the problems are coming from, if we had sanity in our Parliament, if there is a proper clean-up there in our ministers, in our Parliament, I'm telling you, this country will be very clean. You get it?
Yeah.
That is where the problem is.
But meanwhile, while least we hope for a cleanup somewhere at the top there, what can we be doing down here as a way of keeping ourselves clean environmentally, maybe politically and socially and so on?
Yeah, it's you see, we have things that require money to do,
Yeah.
and we have things that don't require money to do. So we have tried our best as a local authority to say in as much as we are waiting, we are going to get money to do these projects. They need thousands, they need millions of dollars, but there are things that will not stop us from making progress. These issues that we're talking about of cleaning our city. If you've traveled to most of these cities, Bulawayo is I would not pride in saying Bulawayo is the best run city. Of course, because one may argue and say that maybe we are the best in a special class. If we can put it that way, we are trying our best. We have done our best in a special class also, because that is all there is. That is all we can manage. We've tried our best, and we are still trying our best. In the midst of challenges, like I said, we are trying to be at the top always.
Yeah.
That is why you see other people, they like coming to Bulawayo because you understand
The environment.
wide roads, the environment,
Yeah.
clean city, there are trees. It's more refreshing, you understand?
Yeah.
When you are here, it's not like Harare. You know Harare. You walk in the streets. I think that also I'll also add the issue of vendors. Have you seen how vendors do in Harare?
Yeah, true.
They are
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
You can't walk in the pavement.
Mm.
We don't want that. That is why I was talking about the issues of vendors. We have tried our best, and we're still doing our best for our people. The things that we do as a local authority, we're not there to fight anyone, but we're there to make sure that you still also enjoy to stay in the city.
Deputy Mayor, I would like to give you this chance to actually say your last words maybe to the residents of Bulawayo. What is it that you want them to do as their own way of contributing towards the development of the city or keeping the city clean in whatever way that the local authority would want assistance from the residents?
Well, thank you. I think I would like to say, as a local authority, residents need to understand that the only way council operates, we don't get any funding from elsewhere. The only money that is used to develop our city comes from rates. So it's very important. I encourage actually residents to keep on paying their rates. Those who have not been paying, those who have been paying, and those who have debts, to also try and manage their debts. They can come to city council, arrange a payment plan, to start paying. It's very important, especially where we are. Our money has lost value. Something that we used to buy for $1, we now spend 8 times that, because we outsource almost everything. Sure. We've got suppliers and everything. So it's very important that as residents who love their city, they should understand that the only way the city is going to develop is from what they pay. The moment they stop paying, things will go down. I don't think in Bulawayo you wouldn't want a situation where we start buying water like they do in Harare.
Yeah.
In this city, you continue buying your water, you continue drinking your water from the tap, safe, and you know it's clean water. Yeah. No one gets sick. The times I think when we had typhoid and cholera outbreaks, we never had an outbreak in Bulawayo. We actually had I think a few patients that were treated. Those patients were coming from elsewhere. So I mean, that tells you that during that time when there was cholera outbreak, it was very bad, but we never encountered such a situation. So it's important that we continue supporting the local authority to make sure that the city is clean. We have clean water, and also the issues of our service delivery. We have a clean environment as well.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor, for the opportunity you've given us today.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching Inside Council Chambers. Thank you so much for joining us. Till we meet again on yet another episode. It's goodbye.